Well, folks, the battle between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis is now broken out into the open. It's getting kind of interesting. Last night, the big news was that there's an interview between Ron DeSantis and Piers Morgan. It is supposed to air on Thursday. There is a sit-down interview between Piers Morgan and DeSantis. It is unclear when exactly this was filmed. And that's a little bit important simply because DeSantis opens up on some of his critiques of Donald Trump. If this was filmed, for example, after Trump had made clear that he thinks he's going to be arrested this week, and this is a major tactical blunder by DeSantis. If it was filmed before, he'd sort of understand what he is doing. In any case, we're going to go through the politics of this. Here is what DeSantis actually has to say. So Piers Morgan asked DeSantis about the fact that Trump has been nicknaming him and calling him Ron DeSanctimonious and all the rest of this kind of stuff. And here was DeSantis' good answer.
What is your favourite nickname that Trump's given you so far? Is it Ron DeSanctimonious or Meatball Ron?
Well, I can't.
I think even he went off Meatball Ron.
I can't. I don't know how to spell DeSanctimonious. I don't really know what it means, but I kind of like it's long. It's got a lot of vowels. I mean, so we go with that. That's fine. You can call me whatever you want. I mean, just as long as you also call me a winner.
And it's that last line that DeSantis is going to run on, that he is in fact a winner. And as we'll get to in just a second, when it comes to the politics of the primary, there are really three issues at play. And the first one is, who do you think is more of a winner, DeSantis or Trump? Because I effectively think that at this point, this is a two-man race. He also got into some of his deeper critiques of Trump as president. He said, I also just think in terms of my approach to leadership, I get personnel in the government who have the agenda of the people and share our agenda, which, of course, is correct. I mean, one of the big problems for Trump is that he was constantly staffing around him people who did not share his agenda, including, by the way, Michael Cohen. I mean, Michael Cohen was his personal lawyer for years, and it is Michael Cohen's testimony upon which this Manhattan DA is now going to bring this flimsy indictment against Donald Trump. Donald Trump has surrounded himself his entire career with not the best people, as it turns out. And he was constantly firing people inside his administration. He had an incredibly leaky administration. He didn't fire all the people in the deep state who were targeting him, for example. And that was one of the things that DeSantis pointed out about, for example, Anthony Fauci. He suggested that it was a mistake for Trump not to fire Anthony Fauci, considering he was the president of the United States, which, of course, is correct. DeSantis said, we really focus on knocking out victories day after day. If I get involved in all the undertow, I would not be able to be an effective governor. He says, with regard to Fauci, he suggested that Fauci probably should have been fired by Trump and that there was really no reason for Trump not to fire him, that his leadership style in Florida was very different by nature, which, of course, is in fact true. Again, all of those critiques are well taken. All those critiques are very real. Unlike the Trump critiques of DeSantis, which are basically calling him fat by calling him Meatball Ron, or suggesting that he is holier than thou with Ron DeSanctimonious, or tweeting out random accusations about him supposedly harassing underage girls or maybe boys. Literally a thing that Donald Trump tweeted over the weekend. Everything that DeSantis says is substantive. But that's not really the question here. The real question here is a strategic one. Okay, because this primary is going to be about three main issues, I think. The first one, as I mentioned, is who is more of a winner? So here, you have the evidence of your eyes, and then you have the evidence of your heart. Right? And these two things are going to be in a battle for Republican voters. The evidence of your eyes that Ron DeSantis is more of a winner than Donald Trump, at least over the past 4 years. Because if you look at the last election cycle, every major Senate candidate that Trump endorsed lost. Herschel Walker in Georgia, Blake Masters in Arizona, Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, Don Baldock in New Hampshire. All of them lost. A bunch of congressional candidates that Trump liked didn't do particularly well in the last election cycle. And that was following a 2021 election cycle in which Donald Trump was almost solely responsible for the loss of 2 Georgia Senate seats, which resulted in the biggest spending binge in American history under Joe Biden. Because if Republicans even hold one of those seats, then none of that spending gets passed. So Donald Trump's record since 2016 has been one of unbridled failure in terms of elections. Not in terms of policy. He did a lot of wonderful things as president, but in 2018, he got his clock cleaned. In 2020, he lost to Biden, and Republicans outperformed him along nearly every other line. In 2021, he lost 2 Georgia Senate seats by single-handedly intervening in those Georgia Senate races. And in 2022, all of his handpicked candidates in a very competitive Senate run for a Republican Party lost. So that is a bad record. Meanwhile, DeSantis in 2018 got elected by the thinnest of margins by 0.4% in the state of Florida, and he turned that into a 20-point victory in Florida, and he picked up congressional seats, and he won a supermajority in the legislature. There was a wave, a red wave, in 2022, but it was relegated to the Sunshine State. That was the only red wave in America was happening in Florida. So in terms of just the pure evidence of your eyes, when you look at who is more of a winner, at least in the foreseeable past, what you see is that DeSantis is more of a winner. However, that's at war with the battle inside the Republican heart, because there is this myth of Trump that's been built since 2016. And the myth of Trump goes something like this. No one could have beat Hillary Clinton except for Trump. No one. Hillary Clinton was a juggernaut. And Trump came along, came out of nowhere, put down everything he was doing, came down that escalator, faced all the slings and arrows up to and including the P-word tape and all the rest of it, just kept walking and ended up defeating Hillary Clinton. And it was a miracle. It was a miracle because, again, that relies on another piece of mythos, the 2012 mythos, which is that Democrats were never going to lose another election. After 2012, Democrats bought into the idea that they had created a durable minority-majority coalition, along with college-educated white ladies, and that coalition would be unbreakable for the rest of time after Barack Obama won re-election in 2012, beating Mitt Romney despite losing something like 3 million votes from 2008 to 2012. Normally, that doesn't happen. If you're an incumbent, you usually gain votes. You don't lose votes and still retain the presidency, but that's exactly what Barack Obama did. And so a theory went out from the Democrats that Democrats would never lose again. And that was the theory that a lot of Republicans bought into after 2012 as well. And then along comes Trump, and he breaks that myth, right? The myth is now that Donald Trump is a unique character who is able to defeat all the forces of political gravity. They just don't apply to him. They don't apply to him. And when presented with the evidence of your eyes, right, which is that he lost in 2018, he lost in 2020, 2021, 2022. When presented with that evidence, people go with the evidence of their heart very often. They'll say, well, he didn't lose. He didn't lose. You know, all Republican presidents are going to lose the midterms. People usually lose the midterms. And then in 2020, when Trump claims that fraud happened and that he lost fraudulently, a lot of people are like, well, he is a miracle man from 2016. So if he lost in 2020, it must have been because the only way you can defeat a miracle man is to cheat. So it must have been that the left cheated, not by setting the rules differently. I agree. That was a cheat. Not by using the media as the baton. I agree that's a cheat. But by actively changing the nature of vote outcomes in states, as Donald Trump suggested, without evidence that they had, and then refused to give him the presidency along Donald Trump's lines by certifying elections that were illegitimate, and Mike Pence, and all of that kind of stuff. So that's the mythos. It's the head versus the heart when it comes to DeSantis versus Trump in terms of who is more likely to be a winner, which is a big issue in a Republican primary. Well, while Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump are vying for that Republican nomination, Joe Biden continues to crater the economy, and this means that you should be diversifying your accounts. Now, here's the thing. Inflation has consequences. As the Fed raises interest rates to combat those out-of-control government spending issues, long-term bonds have diminished in value, and that's crippling the banks. Depositors are still holding their breaths. Investors are bailing on the bank stocks. Diversification, it is the best strategy. This is why there's been a recent surge in gold prices. And it's also why gold has historically been an excellent hedge against the stock market and against inflation. The company I trust to help you diversify into gold, you know what's coming, Birch Gold. I bought gold from Birch Gold because I want a safety net for my family, and you can do the same. Text BEN to 989898. Get a free info kit on gold today. They'll help you convert that existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical precious metals. With an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau, thousands of happy customers, and countless 5-star reviews, Birch Gold is the company I trust to protect my future and yours. Text BEN to 989898 today. Ask all of your questions, and then when you feel ready, diversify at least a little bit into precious metals with Birch Gold. Text BEN to 989898 today. Well, as Republicans vie for that nomination, Joe Biden continues to make the economy run into a ditch. Well, if you've owned a business over the past few years, it's been a pretty rough ride. I mean, from the pandemic to now Biden inflation and now the possibility of a serious recession, you need to claw back some money if you gave too much to the federal government. It's that simple. If you overpaid your taxes, why not go get some of that money back? And this is where my friends at Innovation Refunds come in. Innovation Refunds makes it easy to apply for the Employee Retention Credit, or ERC. Go to getrefunds.com, get started in less than 8 minutes. See if your business qualifies for ERC assistance. Your business might be eligible for a payroll tax rebate of up to $26,000 per employee kept on payroll during COVID-19. Innovation Refunds has already helped clients claim over $3 billion in payroll tax refunds through the ERC. They might be able to help your business too. There's no upfront charge. They don't get paid until your business gets its refund. Don't miss the opportunity. This payroll tax refund is only available for a limited amount of time. Head on over to getrefunds.com. Again, that's getrefunds.com. Getrefunds.com. If you paid taxes, they didn't need to. Why not go get some of that money back? Head on over to getrefunds.com today. See if you're eligible in as little as 8 minutes. Getrefunds.com. Question number 1 for Republican primary voters is going to be who's more of a winner, DeSantis or Trump? As we say, that is a battle of head versus heart. Head, DeSantis. Heart for a lot of Republicans, Trump. Okay, the second question is going to be who will govern better? And this is sort of taken a backseat at this point because, frankly, I don't think that many Republican primary voters even think about governance. But this is a clear win for DeSantis. If you're talking about who is going to govern better, Donald Trump did some good things as president, and he was largely thwarted by his own team or his own inability to actually pull the levers on the system. He was constantly being checked and balanced by people inside his own administration. He was constantly being destroyed from within by people working in the deep state. DeSantis, by contrast, came into the governorship of Florida, he fired everyone who was going to impede his agenda. He stacked the executive branch with people who were loyal to him, and then he proceeded to ram through an extremely conservative agenda. An agenda that was popular, by the way, with the voters of Florida because he's smart and meticulous in how he governs. In terms of who would be, just forget all the other questions, who would be better at running the executive office of the presidency? I don't think there's any question that DeSantis would be better at that. But that's a secondary issue. The primary issue is going to be who is more of a winner, and that is connected to this tertiary issue, this third issue. And this is the one that's going to be really hard for DeSantis to thread the needle on. And this is why I think it was a tactical blunder for him to do this interview with Morgan, where he actually opened up the guns. And this is why I really, really suspect that this interview with Piers Morgan was done before all the chaos of the last weekend. Remember, it's only Wednesday right now. It takes a while in post-production to actually put this stuff together. They're using it as a preview for the interview tomorrow night. So my guess is, again, that this interview with DeSantis was done probably Thursday or Friday before all of the chaos of the weekend, in which it became clear that Trump is likely going to be indicted sometime this week. That third question, that tertiary question, is the question of loyalty to Trump. So let's just get this straight. If the 2024 primaries are going to be a loyalty test to Trump, Trump wins. I mean, it's just that simple. Because there is no one more loyal to Donald Trump than Donald Trump. I mean, end of story. If the question is, which candidate is going to show the most loyalty to Trump, Trump wins. We played this game in 2016, by the way. You'll recall that Ted Cruz in 2016 basically tried to ride Trump's coattails all the way, never saying a bad word about Donald Trump the entire race, and then hoping that Trump was going to fall over and Ted Cruz was going to take the nomination. And it turns out that that was a horrible strategy because he rode Donald Trump's coattails all the way to second place until Donald Trump turned around and just clocked him directly in the face by calling his wife ugly and his dad the murderer of JFK. And Cruz took it. And then he had to go to the primary, and then he went to the convention, and you'll remember that he tried to have the baby. And listen, I know Ted, I really like Ted. This is a tactical blunder of extreme proportions. Right? Ted said, you'll remember at the RNC convention in 2016, follow your heart, which all of the Trump, he thought he was going to split the baby. He thought he was going to be saying to the Trump voters, vote for Trump, and to the not Trump voters, don't vote for Trump. And everybody took it the opposite way. All the not Trump voters were like, we can see what you're doing. You kind of want us to vote for Trump. And all the Trump voters were like, you want us not to vote for Trump. So he ended up with no friends, right? You can't play that game. If the game is loyalty to Trump, no one beats Trump. End of story, done. The primaries are already over. I don't think it's quite about that. I don't think the primaries are quite over. I think that the Republican feeling about Trump is not that you can't criticize Trump. I think the Republican feeling about Trump is generally you cannot give ammunition to people who spend their lives criticizing Trump. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show continues right now. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be getting into the mailbag. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro. Check out for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click the link in the description and join us.